Finally confirmed that my wife is a cheater via PI. Found out that my wife, 30F, of 2 years cheated on me, 51M, and I really don't know what to do. For the past few months, everything has been weird in our relationship. The sex has been less frequent. She always turns me away when I initiate sex because she's tired, or she's not feeling it. Then she started coming home late from work and lying to me about coming home earlier. Sometimes, I would come home early to spend time with her, only to find the babysitter with our 17-month-old son. She would act surprised and tell me she forgot to let me know she was busy at work. I immediately knew she was cheating on me. I didn't bother checking her phone but just let it go on until I decided to hire a PI to confirm my suspicions. It took him less than a week to find her meeting up with a man in a parking lot and having sex with him in the brand new car that I bought her for her birthday. I confronted her, and she came clean about everything. It turns out her affair partner is a coworker, and they've been having a physical affair for the past 4 months. She was very apologetic, screaming, crying, and asked me to forgive her several times. She said she was going to end it, but she was scared and didn't know how. I decided it was best for her to stay somewhere else until I make up my mind about what the next step will be. I also took the car that she was having sex with her affair partner in, as it was in my name, and she's very mad about that. I had to tell her if she takes my car without my permission, I will call the police on her. I also found out while going through credit card report that she faked a work trip and took AP on vacation with my hard-earned money. I just don't know why this is happening. I know I'm older than her, and I've always done everything I can to make her happy, to be there for her. I know I'm not perfect, but I don't think I deserve any of this. At this point, I feel like I'm being taken advantage of for everything that I've given her. It's hard for me to finally see that everyone who warned me about marrying my wife was probably right. I've worked really hard for the past 30 years to get to where I am in my life right now. I went through a nasty divorce 15 years ago, and here I go again. I guess the only good things that I got out of this are my son and a solid prenup. Story 2. Coming up on 20 years. Second marriage for both of us. Children: hers 1, 26, mine 2, 25, 22, and ours, 18. I am no saint. My first marriage, I had an affair. It was a bad marriage almost from the start that I think lack of self-esteem for both of us kept us in for 12 years. Yes, the children came later in that marriage. We dated briefly and married 4 months into. I work long hours and occasionally out of town. The first time was shortly after the birth of our son. I can't exactly remember how I found out, but I believe it was the phone. 2008 happens with the housing market. She ruptures several discs in her back. My industry goes out on strike. We lose everything. Through marriage counseling, many weeks and many counselors, we worked through it. We're both alcoholics, functional at the time, and both have tough childhoods. Several years later, an old girlfriend reaches out to me and pretty much have an emotional affair. I get caught, phone again, and I am confronted. I admit to it and never slept with her, but of course that isn't believed. I stop and continue counseling to try to fix what is broken. I quit alcohol and attend meetings, NA, to figure out what's the behavior that I'm trying to medicate. We both dive into work and she gets involved with a non-profit organization. There's always fundraising events and mixers that I'm never around to attend with her, and of course alcohol. I end up going on location out of state for 8 weeks. Things are okay at the time and we have connection while I'm out of town. Calling almost daily. Life's good, so I thought. While I'm out of town, she starts hanging around a friend who's an alcoholic and was going around joking up on HOK up sites and constantly boasting on all the F-king she's getting. One weekend before I come home, the wife is unavailable. I always seem to get gut feelings with this stuff. I come home and after a week or 2 I see her phone on the table and decide to look. Talks of having to cool it with someone on the board of directors as to not raise suspicions. And a sleepover with my husband calling over and over. Life blows up and I confront. Denies. I'm paranoid. Turns it around and never admits it. Again, more work on myself. Months later, my wife tests positive for the breast cancer gene and with her strong family history decides to have a double mastectomy. At the time, she was helping an elderly couple and had befriended this family. They love her like a daughter. One of their children committed suicide and had another son in their family. This goes on for months and everything seemed okay, as she even took our youngest over for visits. Surgery after surgery with reconstruction and still helping this family. One day the youngest son commits suicide. My wife is devastated. She's blaming herself for it because she was the last one to see him alive. She said that he wasn't doing well and needed someone to talk to. Truth be told, it was right after they had lunch together and she told him that she wanted to give me one last chance because I was turning my life around and I was a good man. He went home and shot himself. The mother was calling hysterically, and that she couldn't get a hold of her son. My wife went over to the apartment and the door was locked, so she called the police. The police went in and everybody found him. For weeks and weeks, hysterics, sobbing, and all the time I was there telling her it wasn't her fault. She couldn't have stopped him. When somebody decides to do that, you can't change their mind. She wasn't invited to the funeral. The family was blaming her, and I had no idea why. Several months later, I was out of town and I heard on the Ring camera her in the kitchen with a friend telling her how much she loved him and how crushed she was. So I decided to confront her, asking her, "Did you love him?" She replied, "Not the way you think. He was there for me and made me believe in myself." I said, "All that time I was consoling you, telling you it wasn't your fault, staying up with you all night with your pain and your tears. You were having an affair with him. Boy, did I feel stupid." She finally decided to get sober. She started a program. She realized that driving the children around and being a drunk wife wasn't good. I just see my life changed for the better. She wanted the same. So here we are 5 years later. We moved out of state. I still work in California. I drive home on weekends unless there's work. Again, there's that gut feeling. Shortly after the new year, I realized there was car had come by. I figured it was one of the clients from her work, didn't think much of it, came over a few times. As a matter of fact, okay, maybe it's work related. At one point this gentleman came over, she invited them in, and about 2 hours later he left with her saying bye, love. This weekend, or should I say this past weekend, I look at the camera and lo and behold, at 11 o'clock at night on Friday, there's this guy is coming over and she goes out to the car with him and brings him into my house. He leaves at 6 o'clock in the morning. The next day, the same person brings a package over to the house and goes to walk in like he owns the place. With the front door locked, he goes to enter the apartment in the front, both locked. She comes outside, goes to the car or somebody else's, and 5 minutes later comes back in the house. I noticed her wedding ring isn't on all the time on the Ring camera, and of course, her texts and her passwords are none of my business. I'm starting to go distant. I know this is marriage is done. I keep getting asked what's wrong, but I'm not gonna do this long distance. I'm not gonna do it over the phone. I'm going to confront her at home. I guess this is a long story, but I'm looking for advice. How do I confront her? Do I give her enough to her to hang herself, or do I just straight out say I know what you're doing and see what happens and then lay out the proof? Nobody I talk to you can tell me any reason why a man would come over at 11 o'clock at night and leave in the morning besides what it is. With work slowing down and the possibility of a strike, I may have to stay in the apartment until the dust settles, but until then, until Saturday, I have to play nice and try not to raise any ideas. How would you confront your spouse? Any and all ideas are welcome.
Thanks for watching my video. Make sure to like and subscribe for more Reddit stories.